Jackie Gada, Jeff Jarrett, and Mike Tenay will be joined by Nick Bockwinkel on the April 12th edition of Quite Frankly with Stephen A. Smith. The show will take place in front of a live studio audience in Times Square in New York City.
Okay.
Stephen A. Smith is one of those guys you kind of think of in the social media age a lot more than pre-social media, but it is fun to see, like, oh, he's just kicking around here with shows on ESPN in, like, 2006. I looked for footage of it and I couldn't find it. There is some footage of his shows from '06, but there's none of this one, I don't think. So, unfortunately, we can't watch it. But Mike Tenay, who's a member of the booking committee, gave the longest, most detailed public assessment of TNA's drug policy on that episode. We handle things on a case-by-case basis, Tenay said. That's what management has decided. If we see that a wrestler has a problem or that the talent comes to us, we will address it. We have in the past and we will in the future. Tenay said it's the best method to use because of the TNA schedule. He said WWE can have a policy because the wrestlers are on the road 4 weeks out of the month, whereas TNA only has 3 shows per month. Tenay said TNA wrestlers are independent contractors in the truest sense of the word, unless they try to work Ring of Honor, because they would work TNA shows and independent shows. Stephen A. asked if the lack of a drug policy could hurt TNA's image. Each individual organization has to address it in their own way, Tenay said. It's something that definitely needs to be addressed. You talked about the deaths of some of the wrestlers. It's just one of those things that's a very sad situation that's happened in the last few years because of that. Most importantly, the wrestlers really need to have the heart tests. The enlarged hearts have been a problem that so many wrestlers have had. So it is a little like corporate-y PR spin. It's like, oh yeah, we deal with it when it comes up, but we don't really care about it otherwise. But that's TNA at the moment. They're not an organization, really.
There's always going to be a thing where, like, the number 2 is going to be held to the same standards as the number 1. Even though it's like, there is 3% of the money here.
Yeah, and like they're not wrong that they're only there 3 days a month, but you also have them under contract and you have a responsibility to them as well.
And you stop them from working other places.
Yeah, and when you start pulling those kind of plays or actually booking them out, you have a fuller responsibility to them, and you should maybe fulfill that responsibility instead of like trying to pay lip service to it and be like, well, you know, when something happens, we do stuff, but other than that, who knows? Yeah. TNA and Aaron Sales and Lease Ownership announced they are joining NBA Motorsports and NASCAR driver Herbie Sadler to sponsor Sadler's entry in the Virginia 500 race on April 2. Aaron's is sponsoring the April 1st TNA UWF show in Martinsville, Virginia. There is a NASCAR feature on one of the
NASCAR.
A NASCAR, because it's in Virginia. Fuck.
Kevin Nash is there.
That would be the best if Kevin Nash was a NASCAR driver. He should do that. But there is a NASCAR feature on one of these episodes of Impact at one point. It is actually the first Thursday episode, April 13th, where they show some of that Hermie Sadler show. They have Michael and Daryl Waltrip there, Liam.
Of course.
Also, Scott Riggs, not to be mistaken with Scotty Riggs.
Oh, boo, I thought it was Scotty Riggs.
Kyle Petty.
Of the Petty Invitational.
Yeah.
The Kyle Petty Invitational, the famous 2000 Indies tournament.
Named for the NASCAR driver. And Jared hit Jeff Hammond with a guitar. Jeff Hammond, your old pal from the FSN era, is there.
Ah, my old pal.
You loved the 6 points of Impact. You were like, I love points. I make points all the time.
I do love points. That means something else. Garrett, did you know that points are a measurement of drugs?
I didn't, actually.
There you go.
I'm a very out-of-touch individual.
I don't know. It's not like a modern terminology.
I'm still out of touch. I'm not cool. I don't know the drugs words.
They aren't cool, Garrett, so you know.
And I'm not, so...
A point is 0.1 grams of base or ice, or a half gram of lower purity powder.
we're teaching the listeners drug lingo for their next drug deal?
Yeah, so if you're going to do meth, 3 point, 2 point.
The company has talked about using Bret Hart forever, and Scott D'Amore and Jerry Borash have always kept in contact with them, although Jeff Jarrett has largely joked about it, other than when he met Hart in England in January and also thought there was a chance, but it looks like it won't be happening. Hart did an interview in the Calgary Sun, and when asked about it, said, "I don't think so, only because I don't know what I could do. If someone asked me to be involved in storylines of the matches themselves, I'd consider that, but for me to be a sideline character, it would have a look of desperation to it." He said he doesn't begrudge Piper or Flair still wrestling, but he wants to be remembered as he was and doesn't want to be a manager, commissioner, or referee.
God, but it's Team Canada's right there.
And also, he comes back to have dreadful matches in 2010.
Yeah, but like you said, he doesn't want to be a manager, commissioner, or ref. Man wants to wrestle if he's going to come back, even if it's shite.
But he wants people to remember him as he was.
Yeah, but then he got a big bag of money.
Like, people say the Usos match is the worst match in WrestleMania history.
I haven't seen that, but I have seen Bret Hart versus Vince McMahon.
And Bret and Vince is definitely a worse match.
But is it funnier?
No. Because, like, Bret and Vince should be the easiest match of all time, but for some reason there's, like, no catharsis. But because they do the whole thing where Bret Hart's family, like, turn on him, and then they don't turn on him, and then they beat up Vince, and then it just kind of ends.
Garrett,
yeah.
Tell them that we reviewed WrestleMania on the Patreon.
We did do a watch-along of that WrestleMania on patreon.com/kiddingme or tnachat.com, so you can hear our extensive thoughts on that show as it happened over on Patreon. That's the only non-TNA show we've done a watch-along for.
Maybe we should do more. What would we do it on?
What's the famously bad wrestling show from the late 90s, 2000s? Heroes
Legends
of Wrestling? Legends of Wrestling? One of those, yeah.
I think we should do Progress Chapter 37.
What's on that?
I don't know, let's find out. Chapter 37, A Sudden Sense of Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go to the review on voicesofwrestling.com.
See how many cancel people are on this one.
Bubblegum defeats Chuck... I shouldn't say spoilers, we're going to watch the show.
Sorry.
Bubblegum versus Chuck Mambo. Kaylee Ray versus Kimberly.
It's a very different
James
era.
Drake versus Fabian Eichner.
This is a very different era.
Marty Scroll versus Cho Coffey versus Pete Dunne versus Trent Seven. Progress Championship #1 contenders match.
Okay.
The South Pacific Power Trip versus FCU and The Origin, Dave Mastiff and El Ligero. Rampage Brown versus Mikey Whiplash.
Okay.
Zach Gibson versus Mark Haskins.
That's a bad show.
Yeah, not a fantastic one.
Why was Progress popular?
Well, this is 2016. It was kind of dying out by that point.
Mm.
And the answer is because they found Will Ospreay before anyone else.
Well, Red Pro had him too, though.
Yeah.
But they also got popular, so maybe it is just Will.
Yeah, he was the ace.